Discomfort. What I've learned the hard way is that a huge part of the spiritual path is learning how to tolerate discomfort. Because I initially was drawn to the spiritual path because I wanted eternal bliss and I wanted to be happy always. And then at a certain point, I started following some sort of, you could call it new age kind of spirituality. Like, I want to live in heaven on earth in perfect health and prosperity and da-da-da-da-da. Like that, that is what I thought the spiritual path is about. And I finally come to, what the spiritual path is about. It's vast, far be it for me to say. But what I've come to now is that a huge part of it is learning how to have serenity and acceptance, even when things aren't going the way I want them to, even when I'm not feeling well, to have some kind of underlying peace or security. And a long, long time ago, I heard a song by Tori Amos, and it was like this kind of rare tract of hers. It was like, they called it B-sides, like this special release album, and, these tracks that aren't, I don't know. I don't even know how I got my hands on this particular tape because but she sang this song, and then in the middle of it, she sang this chorus. She said, "I found the secret to life. I found the secret to life. I'm all right when things aren't all right." And I was like, what? Like, what on earth how is that possible? What does she mean? I was a young lad. I was a young lad in my 20s and, not really been around. I was kind of new to spirituality. And so I had no idea what she was talking about. But now, being a young lad of 51, having been around the block, spiritually, having been, gotten beat up by life and also having tasted extreme states of spiritual ecstasy and bliss and union and communion, and also experiencing really the wonders that life does have to offer, because life has a lot of wonderful, amazing experiences to offer. I think she's right, and oddly enough, or maybe not oddly enough, most of the great mystics will say something similar, that life isn't about the mystery of the secret of life or the meaning of life or enlightenment isn't about nonstop ecstatic bliss, though that can be a part of it, and certainly for great saints they can live in that, but to have an underlying peace and security and wholeness regardless of external circumstances. It sounds so simple. It sounds so simple, and it's very simple to talk about it. Like, I could talk about it all day, and we can all talk about it and philosophize about it all day, but when the S hits the fan, a friend of mine was telling me he's been struggling a little bit with some relationship stuff, and they have a pretty intense life, he and his partner, and they had a day off, and they're both sleep deprived and stressed, and like they're getting into bed, and his partner asks him a really stressful question about a huge conflict they've had, like as they're falling asleep. And like, oh my God, the timing, like they were going to be able to have, they have a kind of a complex life situation, but they were going to be able to have like a good night of sleep. Like they said it, like, and here the partner like asked this really stressful question about this really intense topic, like as they're falling asleep, and is like, and he as most of us non-saints would, he didn't lash out at her, but inwardly, he got really upset and just like, come on, and had trouble sleeping and, tossing and turning. Um, and so that's where, for me, that's where spirituality gets real. Like, I've gotten to the point where I can pretty much access bliss anytime I want, or almost anytime I want. Um, but I haven't gotten to the point where I can stay peaceful under a circumstance like that. Or, as I shared, I made the interesting decision to rent out my house to who I thought was my closest friend, and like the moment he moved in, like he became a different person, or maybe he's been hiding it from me. Um, I've only known him. I've known him for about 9 months to a year, so things get very different when you become someone's landlord or they live in your space. Like, he just became a different person, like a full on, almost a sociopath. Like, no empathy, no boundaries. Like, upset both the neighbors, went onto their properties without their permission in a disrespectful way, and like damaged the property and stole things. And like, it was just crazy. It's like, who is this person? And boy, did I lose my shit. I did not cope well. Inwardly, I didn't outwardly, I didn't like freak out. I didn't, like beat him up, or I sure wanted to. There were moments where I sure wanted to, or like really, like lock the doors and put their stuff outside. Like, I had some pretty dramatic, but like, that's, for me, that's the place where spirituality, where it's like, if a spiritual path doesn't include learning how to not lose your shit, and or not lose your shit when you lose your shit, like, then it's kind of worthless, or it's mostly, I won't say it's completely worthless, but it's not practical. It's, for me, most of the spiritual things I did for most of my life were just a form of escapism, and it didn't really help me to deal with situations like that, the one I just described, or the situation that my friend described with his partner. Like, it's really cool to like read about metaphysical theories and like multiple dimensions, and it's really cool to go to like ecstatic dances or drumming circles. Like, I think those things are great, and those things can like give me fuel. But I had to make a fundamental decision that I'm gonna face everything. Like, I'm gonna face the feelings inside of me. I'm gonna face the challenges of life and not run away from it. Not run away from it spiritually, which I did, and not run away from it with addictive behaviors, which I did, and not run away with it just the way, I don't want to be judgmental, but I believe most people run away from life through like TV and coffee and cigarettes and bad diet, just kind of create this like underlying state of numbness. And I did that to an extreme with TV and food and sugar, and a little bit of those things is fine, and in moderation those things can actually like be medicine. Just depends where you are on the path. But that's where I'm at. Is I got to a corner. I got myself into a corner. Like, I got too spiritual, quote spiritual, more like too transcendent, to where I just couldn't cope with life. And through grace and grit, I found the Buddha's teaching, which is about facing uh, facing all the feelings that arise and cultivating detachment. And I finally, that teaching really helped me break through and see that I was just running from life, and I was using quote spirituality to run from life, and it just wasn't working. And I understand why. Like, feelings, like to live a not numb and not distracted life, like feelings are all over the place, and they're uncomfortable, and they're wild, and they don't make sense, and they inconvenient. And I have to say, I feel more alive than ever before, and I'm in. I'm the price tag. The price tag of these intense feelings is a rich, full life. I say yes.